but now I wanted my pound of flesh. When my boss asked me if I was growing a beard, I told him not really. He informed me that unless I came to work shaved and looked like I belonged there, not to come in any longer. I didn't hire a homeless man to sell policies because if I had, I'd be paying him a hell of a lot less than you're making. That was my first eye-opener. The next one wasn't so nice. When all I did was mope around the house, my dad went into his place one afternoon and brought out his .45 caliber handgun. He cocked it and handed it to me. Put it in your mouth and aim for the top of your head. Use both hands so you don't miss, because I sure as hell don't want to take care of a vegetable for the rest of my life. And if you don't mind, please do it outside on the back deck. It's going to be messy, and I'd rather clean up the backyard with a hose than have to clean up a kitchen or living room. I just looked at him like he was crazy. I'm not going to kill myself. I handed him back his gun. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, all we have to do is to find a way to jumpstart your heart so you can rejoin the human race. My dad was right about one thing. I needed something to bring me back to life. I screamed my lungs out all the way down on my first and last tandem parachute jump. The only reason I didn't either throw up or shit in my pants was because I had literally nothing in my stomach. Good thing. The Mustang Cobra was fast, but the suspension was so stiff it felt like a race car. And who wanted to drive one of those to and from work every day? The 3 Corvettes I test drove were even faster, got a hell of a lot better gas mileage, but didn't give me the rush I was looking for. I was back to putting one foot in front of the other, all the while caring for my daughter. Both sets of grandparents were great during our time of need, but were smothering Tina. The more they gave or did for her, the more she clung to me. When I lost Lana, I became the mother out of necessity. Now, as I began to enter the human race again, I wanted to be both the mother and father she needed. Shopping for clothes with an almost 9-year-old girl was a new experience for me. Don't get me wrong, I'd often gone shopping with my wife and daughter, and I was there physically, but mentally? Well, that was another story. What happened was they did the shopping. I just stood there pretending to be interested. To me, everything looked good on them. Now Tina wanted my opinion and wasn't satisfied with, "It looks nice," anymore. I came to understand why men don't go shopping with their wives, because after a full day at the mall we had only 2 stupid outfits, neither of which I much cared for. But life for the 2 of us was getting easier. I guess my dad wasn't full of shit. 6 months later, 2 things happened. I settled with the doctor's insurance company. I wasn't rich, but Tina's education and our immediate future would be totally taken care of. I used a portion to pay off my mortgage on our beach house, including the renovations, and the rest just sat in the bank and money markets. The only thing I had to agree to was no future litigation and accept the fact that they admitted no fault in her death. I signed. Nothing was going to bring Lana back. That night I took Tina out to dinner, and on the way home we each put a rose on her grave. Alone in my bed I cried, setting myself back 4 months from where I'd moved forward. A week later I took Tina to a car and motorcycle show at the downtown Armory. It was held inside, but there were a million vendors outside selling everything you could possibly want. We walked the aisles looking at every type of show car and bike that you could imagine. Then I saw it. Dark, mandarin orange metallic, with lime green, fire engine red, and silver gray pin stripping. It was a chopper with a front end that went on forever. The chrome wheels shone so brightly you almost needed sunglasses to look at them. It only had a single seat, a short back fender, and a rear tire that must have come off a 4x4 truck. It was so damn wide. Best of all, it had a for sale sign on it. I looked it over for what must have been at least 20 minutes while Tina stood by watching me. I asked a few dumb questions before asking permission to sit on it. "You ride much?" "Nope, not at all." "How does it handle?" "It'll take you a while to get used to the long front end, and you'll need to watch your speed going into the corners. But besides that, it will feel like every other bike you've ever ridden." It probably would have if I'd ever ridden a bike before, which I hadn't. This was the first one I had ever thrown a leg over. "How much are you asking?" "I've got 32 into it, but I need the money," he laughed. "I don't, but my wife thinks we need a house, so all my toys are going. Lana never would have done that to me. If you're interested and want to take it for a spin, we can set something up for after the show today." "I'd like that, but or should I say I have a slight problem. I've never ridden one before." "You mean a chopper?" "No, I mean a motorcycle. You're screwing with me, right? I wish I was. Look, I'm interested, but if you've got other offers, don't worry about me, I said, still mesmerized by what I was sitting on. Here, he said, handing me his card. I may regret this, but I'll hold it for 2 weeks. But that's all. Go to the Harley-Davidson dealership and sign up for their riding course. In this state, you have to go through this bullshit safety course before you can get a license anyway. And in your case, that is exactly what you need. I got off, we shook hands, and I gave him my cell phone number. I took one more look at it before turning around and walking away. Dad, you're not thinking about what I think you're thinking about, are you? Tina asked, looking up at me. Grandpa would kill you. You know that, don't you? What Grandpa doesn't know won't hurt him. He was the last thing I was thinking about right now. Ridden much? Was the first question they asked me at the Harley dealership. Nope, never. Sat on one though. Guess that's why I'm here. He stamped beginner on my application. The class is all day Saturday and Sunday. Once you pass the written and riding test, you can get the endorsement on your driver's license. I gave him a check for $250 and that was that. That's what I thought. Anyway, I also needed a helmet, boots, and riding gloves. Now, after $300 more, I could finally leave. You're serious about this, aren't you? My daughter said, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Mom would have never let you buy a motorcycle, and Grandpa calls them organ donors on wheels. Look, honey, this is something I've got to do right now. I'm not asking you to understand, just trust me on this one. You do know I expect a ride before you either crash it or Grandpa finds out and makes you sell it. I noticed she had her mom smile when she gave me a big one, knowing we now had our own personal secret. I felt like a total klutz. The book was basically common sense stuff. Once you got it in your head, you were on 2, not 4 wheels. But I'd never ridden a motorcycle. I hadn't even been on a 2-wheel bicycle since I was a kid, so it took me a while to get used to it. Clutch on the left, gas and brake on the right, is what kept going through my mind as I took off for the first time on a bike that looked like it had gone through World War II. They gave us Ducati 250cc motorcycles, and by the looks of them, they'd been dropped more than a couple hundred times. Over the next 8 hours, I added to that count. I started the bike, gave it a little gas, let out the clutch, and killed the engine after 3 feet. Give it a little more gas and let the clutch out slower, I was instructed. I started it again, gave it a ton of gas and slowly let out the clutch. The engine was screaming, but I was moving forward and this time I didn't kill the engine. I probably burned out the clutch, but I was riding. It took a while for me to learn the proper gas to clutch ratio, which finally came with practice. The instructor had the patience of a saint. He had probably seen all the stupid mistakes we were making a million times before. Starting, stopping, and making turns were all that we accomplished that first day. I was drained, stressed to the max, and afraid I would be the first one to fall over. I wasn't, I was the second one. No matter, I felt alive, and every fiber of my body screamed out for more. Sunday, I was the first one there. I had made breakfast for Tina and dropped her off at Tommy's house again. I couldn't take the chance of leaving her with my parents. The morning consisted of figure 8s, sharp turns, rapid stops, and proper lane changes. I was starting to get cocky. When we had to do a figure 8 one way, and then reverse it without putting our feet down, I crashed and burned. It took me 3 tries and was told if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't pass the riding test. My cockiness evaporated immediately. That afternoon, I missed 1 question on the written test and maxed the riding test. We all felt pretty good about ourselves, but the instructor cautioned us, saying we would need a lot more actual practice before we could call ourselves even novice riders. We got our certificates and half of us decided to celebrate. There were 12 people in our class. I was surprised that 4 of them were women, and most of them had done better than the guys on the riding test. At a local hangout, we toasted our good fortune while talking about the bikes we were going to eventually own. A husband and wife said that they were looking at a Harley Ultra. The oldest guy in the class said he already put money down on a trike. When I said that I was looking at a chopper, most thought it was a cool bike, but not too practical if I planned on doing any long-distance runs. I wasn't thinking long distance. I was thinking to and from work and fun weekend rides, but to be on the safe side, I decided I'd look at other bikes. All right, Tommy wasn't happy I'd passed, but I made him promise, like I had Tina, not to say a word to anyone. The following weekend, after Tina and I went out to lunch, We started my quest for the perfect bike. After trying two, I realized that a crotch rocket wasn't for me. The best way to describe them was jumping out of a plane without a parachute, and I wasn't going there again. I rode 4 cruisers, all Japanese bikes. The Honda had everything that I could possibly need, but it didn't have that wow factor I was looking for. I dug out the phone number from the guy at the show and gave him a call. Tuesday after work, I rode my first Harley-Davidson motorcycle. As I said, it wasn't stock, but it sure got my juices flowing. It was 10 times as loud as the Honda with none of the bells and whistles. A speedometer, a tachometer, and turn signals were all it had. He said he had a custom-made windshield for cold mornings, and even a pee-pad seat for the rear fender if I was interested. I almost dropped it going into my first turn. The front rake was so extreme I had to start turning well before I went into the corner and cut my speed almost in half. But on a straight flat road, my heart told me this was what I was looking for. We talked price for 3 days before settling on one we could both live with. I think we each got what we wanted out of the deal. Frankly, I think I got the better end of the deal because he threw in all the extras, and for just under $25,000 I had a bike that turned heads, including my own. I thought just a do-rag was in order. I had to look cool, didn't I? But Tina told me she'd make a quick call to her grandfather if she even thought I was riding without a helmet. On Monday, I got into work early, and everyone who came in after me wanted to know who owned the hot bike in the parking lot. I said nothing to anyone and just let everyone look and wonder. Most of the people were gone when I finally left work. However, the people who did see me gave me a big smile and a thumbs up. The following day, the men wanted to know the why. However, many of the women started to look at me in a whole new light. Did I want the attention? Not really, but I didn't want to be totally ignored either. The only thing I really wanted was to be able to do my thing. A trip to the dealership to get an oil change was rather enlightening. There were so many custom parts on the bike, they had to order a special oil filter. 1 week later, I spent 2 hours waiting while they did an oil change, including a full look-see at the ins and outs on my new toy. It's in great shape, I was told, but warned if anything went wrong, most parts would have to be special ordered or customized to fit. Everyone wanted to know what I paid, and if I'd thought about joining the local HOG chapter. I'll bite. What's a HOG chapter? For the next 20 minutes, I was informed about the Harley Owners Group and how to join it. You first had to be a national member, after which you could join a local chapter. One of the salesmen, who was also a member, filled me in on the local chapter. We have activities most weekends, though it's really about hanging with people who like to ride. I figured it was more fun to ride with a group, so after a few clicks of my mouse and about another $100, I was a national HOG. Along with the local chapter member, I had fun, real fun. For the first time in a long time, actually since losing Lana, I went on rides most weekends and even started taking Tina with me on the short lunch rides. She wasn't happy most times since she had to sit on that small fender pad and hang on to me for dear life. One Saturday, ride was a little longer than most. We turned into the kickstand bar and restaurant just after noon. It was close to a 65-mile jaunt that took a couple of hours as we took every back road in Florida. Although I was having the time of my life, Tina wasn't. When all sat down at 2 large tables and ordered beverages, lunch, and a basket of munchies, Tina voiced her dismay concerning her situation. "No more," she said in a louder than normal voice. I guess trying to talk above the crowd at our table. "That seat is kicking my butt, not to mention my back." She stretched her arms above her head. "I can't take it anymore." "It's not that bad. For you it's not bad. You've got a real seat. Me? I've got something the size of a napkin with the softness of a piece of cardboard. Dad, this is my last ride with you, unless you get me something better to sit on. Hell, if I could get a cab to pick me up right now, I'd gladly pay for it out of my allowance just for a comfortable ride home." I was about to say again that she was overreacting when someone from behind me spoke up. "If you want, you can ride back with me. I've got a comfortable back seat that is not being used." Turning around, I saw Nadine making the offer to my daughter. I was about to say something like, "That's okay, she'd rather be with her dad," when Tina piped up, "You've got yourself a passenger." Nadine and I were acquainted. How could we not be? We both went on most weekend rides and had talked occasionally, but that was about it. She was cute, well, what I could see behind those huge sunglasses she always wore, but she didn't say much. Sure, we talked about the runs we were on or what was coming up next, but it was like she'd only allow a few questions and then made it a point to disappear. "You don't have to do that," I replied, turning around to face her. "No problem. I haven't had anyone behind me in ages. Anyway, it'll be fun. A lot more fun than riding on the back of that thing you call a bike." "I love my bike." "Steve, it's a one-person bike. If I were you, I'd trade that thing in for something a lot bigger and a whole lot more comfortable to ride for the both of you." Tina and Nadine were both right. It wasn't the most comfortable bike in the world. It vibrated, had a rigid frame, and even my seat could have used a bit more padding. It was old school, I guess. That's why it had only 2,200 miles on it when I bought it. It's made to be looked at, not ridden for any real distance. That is, unless you like visiting chiropractors, she followed up with. "Dad, please, can I go back with her?" How could I argue with that face? "Only if Nadine will let me pay for her lunch in exchange." "Well, you insist, but you don't have to, you know." "I know, but for a fellow HOG member, I think it's a must." I watched Nadine hobble around the table, grab herself a chair, and with difficulty sit down next to Tina. Damn, I never noticed, but she had to be almost my height, though I think a lot had to do with the boots she wore. Big, black, high-top Harley boots with the highest heel they made. Putting her sunglasses on top of the black Harley hat she always wore, Nadine practically flopped down into the chair. "Just an old war injury," she told my daughter with a smile. It was evident she did not want to say any more about it because she immediately glanced down at her menu. What I had heard from others was that Nadine used to be married, but about 6 years ago, she and her husband got hit riding on his bike. A car blasted through a red light and hit their bike about a third of the way back from the front wheel. Her husband, Greg, died on impact, and she got messed up pretty badly. She spent the next 8 or 9 months in therapy, learning to walk all over again. Though the doctors saved her leg, it would never be what it once was. She had a ton of pins in it. It basically had to be rebuilt from the inside out. "Tina, I've got a 2-year-old trike with a plush back seat, speakers, and 2 drink holders. If you want, you can even plug in that iPod of yours and play it through my speakers." Tina was more than sold. Lunch was good, but the conversation between the three of us was better. She wasn't backing away from Tina's questions like she'd always done mine. When the road leader yelled it was time to head out again, we all went for our bikes, a few of us faster than others. I knew what her bike looked like. I'd seen it a million times before. It was bright red metallic with gold and black speckles in the paint. Her helmet and those big red sunglasses both matched the bike. I was going to say it was a little gaudy considering its size, but after looking at mine in the sunlight, I decided to keep my mouth shut. When Tina climbed aboard, I saw her eyes light up as she moved around in the large, oversized seat, getting comfortable. With a huge smile on her face, she announced that it was even more comfortable than our couch at home. She was probably right. I rode about a bike's length behind them in the same lane. They never stopped talking. Nadine had an intercom system, and I could see them talk and look over at me every once in a while and laugh. I didn't know what they were saying, but it couldn't have been that funny. An hour and a half later, we were pulling into the dealership lot. Tina got off Nadine's bike, gave her a hug, telling her that was the best ride she'd ever had on the back of a motorcycle. "Maybe next week, if your dad decides to go, he'll let you ride with me again." "Dad, please?" Tina begged, staring at me with the same puppy dog eyes her mother had. "We'll see," was all I said. I turned back to Nadine. "I want to thank you for letting Tina ride with you. I know she was a lot more comfortable on the back of your bike. If you ever want to see what it's like to ride a real bike, I'll give you a ride sometime." Not a chance in hell. Me, riding behind a girl? I'd never live that one down, I thought to myself. "Well, thank you again, and maybe we'll see each other next week?" Which was more of a question than a statement. I told Tina to hop on, and within 2 minutes we were out of there heading back to our house. We grilled out on the back deck, and after a few beers I was about ready for bed, but Tina had other ideas. "Dad, let's go for a walk on the beach," she said, putting on her tennis shoes. We were out about 10 minutes when she opened up. "Dad, do you still miss Mom?" "Every day, pumpkin. When you think about her, do you still get sad?" I wasn't sure why all the questions tonight. "Dad, sometimes when I close my eyes, I see Mom the way she was before she got sick, but I don't feel as sad as I did before. I still love and miss her, but I don't cry very much anymore." Sweetheart, just because you don't cry every day doesn't mean you love or miss her any less. It's just that it's going to get easier every day. The pain will still be there, but it will fade and eventually you'll just remember the good times. And the sad ones? Well, they'll fade more and more. I hope that would answer her questions. Do you think you'll ever replace Mom and get married again? I stopped walking, knelt down in the sand so I was eye to eye with Tina. I took her in my arms. Honey, your mom can never be replaced. I may find someone else, but what your mom and I had was special, and no one will ever replace those memories. Why are you asking all these questions? Grandma said you're pining away. She said you should be moving on with your life. What does pining away mean? It just means I'm still holding a torch for your mother. There's nothing wrong with that, and when I'm ready to move on, you'll be the first to know. I gave her a big smile, which she probably couldn't see since it was getting pretty dark. We gave each other a big hug. I got up from the sand, and with our hands entwined, we walked back home. It was an easy but busy week. On Wednesday, we had dinner at my parents' house, where Tina made it a point to tell my mother that she had ridden on someone else's bike the weekend before. You're going to get your daughter killed. You know that, don't you? My dad said in disgust. Dad, I know how you feel, but it's no different than Tina riding her bicycle in the street. He mumbled something and left the dinner table. He'll get over it eventually. You know how stubborn your dad can be. He's only looking out for the two of you, my mom said, touching my hand. And it would kill him if something happened to either one of you. I knew she was right, but nothing was going to happen. I hemmed and hawed about going on the ride Saturday. I had things to do around the house I'd promised myself I was going to get done. But getting out on the open road with friends, that was something special. Tina asked if she could go. That in itself presented a problem. If Nadine doesn't come, you're going to get stuck on the back of my bike. Do you think you can handle that? Nadine said she's coming and that I can ride with her, she insisted stubbornly. Okay, I'm just asking you. What if she doesn't show? She'll be there. She gave me another one of her Lana looks. I let it drop. Nadine, Nadine, Tina yelled, rushing over to her as she was putting her helmet into the trunk of her bike. Can I ride with you again today? If it's okay with your dad, then it's totally fine with me. She looked over towards me for some type of response. Nadine, I don't want Tina to become a pest by taking advantage of your good nature. Steve, like I said, no one has ridden in that rear seat since I bought this bike. I would love having her company. It will be enjoyable having someone to talk to while I ride. Well, okay. If it's no trouble, then I guess you've got yourself a passenger for today's ride. She was dressed, as usual, all in black from her boot cut, jeans to her t-shirt that had a hot babe on it and said Daytona 2008. This time she was wearing black sunglasses with a big CC on the sides and her usual black Harley hat. She always looked like she had just stepped out of a Johnny Cash song. It was a poker run put on by another HOG chapter. We had 5 stops and got 1 card at each, followed by a barbecue at the final stop. Crap is what I got. Not even 1 pair. When I found Tina and Nadine at the final stop, they were both grinning ear to ear. You guys want to grab a bite to eat? They looked at each other and started to laugh. Am I missing something? We got a straight flush, queen high, Tina said, looking at Nadine. And the payout is somewhere in the area of $250. At that point, they started holding hands and jumping up and down. Tina was anyway. They won, and then gloated about it the entire time at lunch. A new outfit, complete with shoes and the accompanying accessories, was discussed. I didn't even win one of the 50 or so door prizes. Steve, would you mind if I took Tina shopping on Sunday for a couple of hours in the afternoon? With Tina's eyes wider than I'd seen in months, what was I going to say? Nadine, I don't want her to be a bother to you. I was trying to let her off easy if Tina had talked her into it. No bother, and besides, we've got this money burning a hole in our pocket, don't we, girlfriend? Tina was wild, and having more fun than she'd had with just me in ages. I gave her our address, grabbed Tina, and headed out on my bike. Her husband died in an accident when they were on their bike. That's why she walks like that. I asked her how she could get back on a motorcycle after what she went through. You know what she told me? She said she still likes to ride because it brings her closer to Greg when she does. Dad, that makes no sense. Honey, you still have all those stuffed animals Mom gave you? Of course. she replied quickly. When you look at them and hold them, do you think of Mom? She wasn't so quick to answer this time. It's just like Nadine riding her bike. It was something they both loved to do, and when she's on her bike, she's remembering all the good times she and her husband had together. It brings her closer to Greg like the animals bring back memories of your mom. We were now talking about something I didn't really want to get into tonight. It still brought back memories, both good and bad. I had started to try and suppress so I could begin to move on with my life. After putting Tina to bed, I spent the rest of the evening on the rooftop deck, looking out towards the ocean, remembering how and why we'd bought this house. Sunday morning, Tina was up by 8, showered and dressed by 8:30, and done with breakfast by 9. Nadine said she'd be here by about 10. Relax, it's just the mall. She gave me this ugly look like I'd sprouted another head. When a guy needs something, he goes shopping with a purpose. If it's a shirt, he finds one he likes and buys it. Hell, most guys don't even try it on. And washing it before you wear it? Please. As long as it still doesn't have the pins in it, it's worn the next day. Women, on the other hand, and I know this from personal experience, don't shop, they look. They can go to the mall looking for one thing and come home with 5 different items, and maybe not even the thing they went there to find. To them, it's a form of recreation. You don't know what you're going to find, but when you do, you have to have it. I'll never understand the female mind. I used to tell Lana to put her credit cards on the counter and back away with her hands in the air. Did she listen to me? Hell no. All I heard is shop till you drop as she and my mom walked out the door. Nadine pulled up in a newer model Mustang. The girl must have money, I thought to myself, walking out the front door to take a look at her car. Nice, very nice. It was a bank repo. I got it for what was left on the loan, in other words, a steal. I'm glad it's an automatic, because there would be no way I could handle a stick with my bum leg. Tina was already behind us, purse in hand, chomping at the bit. We won't be too awfully long, unless we see something we really like. Then you'll probably have to send out a search party. I slipped her a 50 and 2 tins, just to make sure you guys don't run short. We exchanged a smile with that line. 2 minutes later they were gone, and I started working on the new bathroom floor. I hate doing floor tile in a confined space because of all the intricate cuts you end up having to make. I was about half done when I heard the commotion. There was a lot of laughing as 2 women, or should I say 1 woman and 1 pre-adolescent, had made it back from the mall. Wiping off my hands, I went out to see what they'd bought. Dad, it was so cool. Everything was on sale, Tina announced, showing me her 4 bags of clothes. I can't believe how much stuff I got. I looked over at Nadine, who just raised her shoulders and shrugged. I picked up a bag, and before I could get a look at what was inside, Tina pulled it away. Dad, that's my underwear bag. Sorry, but if you'll remember, when we went shopping last time we bought you underwear. Not like this, Nadine said with a big wide grin. I didn't want to know any more at this point. They kept going on and on about what they'd bought, and even what they hadn't. I looked at my watch. It's getting close to supper time. I looked at Nadine. You're more than welcome to stay and eat with us. We're grilling something, that's about all I can tell you. We'd loving having you join us, wouldn't we, Tina? Tina could hardly contain herself. Please stay, Nadine, Tina begged. Nadine was looking unsure. I probably should be getting out of your hair. Since I couldn't convince her, Tina did. Or maybe I should say, Tina didn't give her a choice. No, you just have to stay, please, she continued to beg. Who could resist those eyes? Nadine acquiesced. Thanking us, she said she would be glad to join us. I did chicken and baked potatoes on the grill while the women made a tossed salad. Looking around, Nadine seemed intrigued by our home. Lovely place you have. How long have you lived here? Just under 4.5 years. We sold our condo just off the downtown, and with my folks, brother, and sister we bought this place. They rent out their units most of the year, but Tina and I live in ours full time. It must be heaven living so close to the ocean. It really is, and if your leg's not bothering you too much, I've just got to show you the rooftop deck with its panoramic view. I think if she had to crawl, she would have made it onto the roof. Looking to the west, the sun was setting over the intercoastal waterway. The colors, well, let's just say they were something out of a travel brochure and leave it at that. Oh my God, it's beautiful up here, she gasped, taking off her sunglasses and hat, shaking her shoulder-length jet black hair, and pulling it back behind her ears. I think if I lived here, I'd never want to go back downstairs. It had been a while since I'd been on the roof to watch the sunset. Towards the end, I would pick up Lana and carry her up to the deck many a night to watch the sun go down and listen to the waves behind us breaking on the shore. I got a pang of sadness. We spent the better part of an hour on the roof looking, listening, and talking. "Look at the time," Nadine announced, glancing down at her watch. "I've got to get home, put this stuff away, and get ready for work tomorrow. I want to thank you both for a lovely day. Nadine, I want to thank you for taking Tina shopping. I'm not much of a shopper, and I am pretty sure you were a lot more fun to shop with than me or her grandmother's." We made it back downstairs in one piece, and with a bunch of hugs and kisses on the cheeks, and with the roar of her Mustang's engine, Nadine was gone. "I had so much fun today." Tina was floating on air. "I hope you didn't spend all her money." "Nope. We split the 250, but somehow we seemed to get more than that." She shook her head. "I must have added it up wrong." I grinned in her direction. I took a shower, got my clothes ready for tomorrow, and went to say goodnight to Tina. "Dad, for some reason Nadine thought you were divorced." I told her about Mom. She said she was sorry for my loss. She told me she knows how it feels to lose someone you love. "Honey, did it make you uncomfortable to share that with a stranger?" "Dad, Nadine isn't a stranger. She's my friend." What could I say at that point? We saw a lot of Nadine and our HOG brothers and sisters over the next 6 months. When we went on weekend runs, Tina was always sitting behind Nadine. At times I would glance over to the two of them, thinking I was looking at Lana, and our daughter Tina seemed happy again. We weren't an actual couple. It's just that everyone assumed we were. We were good friends who did stuff together. Over the next couple of months, when someone invited Nadine or me, they took it for granted the other would be there too. Nadine came over for barbecues at our place and even invited us over to her place one night after a run that ended close to her home. It was a cute 3-bedroom house in a gated community in Orange Park she and her husband had purchased just prior to the accident. Although she didn't talk much about him or about herself to me, she and Tina became thick as thieves. I was sure Tina knew more than she was letting on. It was 92 degrees when our run ended at the dealership. I felt like my legs were cooking sitting on my bike at every stoplight that took more than 30 seconds to change. In a sleeveless t-shirt, jeans, and heavy boots, I was looking forward to stripping down into a pair of light shorts and sandals. Nadine, with Tina sitting behind her, followed me back home. We pulled into my driveway and saw Tommy and his family were already there. Tommy didn't rent out his unit in the summer. Introductions were made, cold brews and sodas were opened, and everyone kicked back enjoying the shade on the back deck. "Nadine, if you want to get out of those heavy jeans, I'm sure I can find a pair of shorts for you to put on," Ruth, Tommy's wife, told her. "I'm fine," she said, taking off her riding boots and slipping on a pair of sandals. I joined in on the conversation. "Come on, Nadine," I urged. "Put on some shorts and we'll go over to the beach and walk in the water to cool off." I felt a painful pinch on my arm at the same time Nadine declined my offer. Tina met my eyes and mouthed the word no. "Tina, why don't you give me a hand taking out something to put on the grill for tonight?" "Folks, we'll be back in a minute. Bring out a few refills when you come back," Tommy shouted. We walked inside and up the stairs to our place. "Dad, she's self-conscious about the scars on her right leg and doesn't want anyone to see them. That's why you never see her in shorts." "They can't be that bad. They're pretty big and kind of gross, Dad. I've seen them." "When?" I started to ask. "Remember when we went clothes shopping? I caught a glimpse of them in the mirror." She said they're not painful, but she still has a hard time bending her leg. I think she's more frustrated than anything else, and being a woman, well, you can figure that one out. That's crazy. She's beautiful. So what if she's got a few little scars? No one's perfect. You tell her that because I'm not going there. Nadine had to be about 5 feet 8 in her stocking feet, and from what I could gather probably weighed in at about 130, though I couldn't be sure about that. It was kind of hard to judge because she never, and I repeat never, wore anything form-fitting. Her black t-shirts were loose and her jeans were not the new fashion tight ones with the straight legs. Most of the time she wore a black Harley hat covering her long, jet black hair, which she always wore in a ponytail tied back with a leather braid of sorts. She couldn't have been much older than 28, though I never asked. And she was good looking, well, I thought so. She wasn't a runway model, but was sure easy on the eyes. And I found myself looking at her more and more lately, almost studying her on occasion. The only reason I hadn't thought of her in a romantic way before was because everything about her said, back off. Previously, more than one guy in the group had gotten his pride handed back to him a little bruised when he tried to hit on her. I came back with 3 more Coronas and a menu that no one objected to, especially since I was supplying the food and cooking it. Dinner was nice and really laid back. I opened a bottle of wine with dinner. Nadine begged off, saying wine and writing don't mix. It was starting to get dark when Nadine asked if we could go topside and watch the sunset. I agreed, saying it was a great idea, and asked everyone up to the roof since it was getting close to sunset. No one else joined us, saying if you'd seen one sunset, you'd seen them all. Like last time, Nadine had some trouble climbing the stairs. I was going to joke about putting in an elevator just for her, but thought better of it. On the roof deck, we sat down in the 2 loungers waiting for the colors to explode. I could sit here forever, she said, looking over at me. It's so relaxing listening to the ocean and watching one of God's marvels unfold right in front of your eyes. It makes me feel so small and insignificant in the scheme of things. She was right, and the sunset was beautiful as usual. She looked at ease. Then when she saw me watching her, her guard went up again. I reached over and gave her a big hug, and for the first time she hugged me back. I think I would have tried to give her a real kiss, but I chickened out not knowing how she would react. When we released each other, she gave me a confused look. Did I overstep my bounds, or did she want more? I too was confused. There was no ride scheduled for the following weekend. She told me if I felt the urge to give her a call. After that she was off. You dating her? Or is this a friend with benefits type of thing? Tommy asked when we were alone. To tell you the truth, I'm really not too sure. The 3 of us hang out together. I'd probably like to get to know her better, but every time I make any advances, she clams up and puts up this 10-foot concrete wall between us. But one thing's for certain, she sure as hell likes Tina. Well then, stupid. Ask Tina what her problem is? Maybe she just doesn't like ugly, stupid men. Haha, look who's calling the kettle black. At least I had the guts to stand up to Dad and buy my Harley. Stupid decisions like that don't count. Now, if he had told you not to do something in advance, and you went against him, that would be something. We looked at each other and laughed. We both knew that would never happen. That night, before I kissed Tina goodnight, we had a little talk. Honey, why does Nadine seem put off by me? Did I do something to offend her? If I did, I don't have a clue what it was. Dad, she does like you. She even told me so herself. It's just that she'd kind of a private person, that's all. She looked away at that point. Okay, spill it. You know something you're not telling me. Dad, I promised Nadine I wouldn't tell. I gave her my word. She had Lana's concerned look in her eyes. I had to let it slide. I'd never ask you to betray anyone's confidence. Just tell her that if I offended her in any way, I'm sorry. Okay. Sure, Dad, but I don't think that will be necessary. With a big hug and a little tickling, we both called it a night. For Tina, that is, with a glass of wine in my hand. I found myself up on the rooftop deck again that night. Memories flooded into my brain as I talked to my wife, looking for a little insight, I guess. Tears didn't flow, but I felt my eyes well up. I still missed Lana terribly, and as far as I thought I had come, it only took me thinking about the good times to bring on another bout of remorse and sadness. I loved Lana and always would. But that night I finally realized I had to move on if I was going to remain among the living. I wasn't closing that chapter of my life. More like I was moving it into those memories I'd treasure until the day I died. Sunday I finally finished the bathroom floor and started resurfacing the kitchen cupboard doors. With a dust mask on, Tina helped me sand the totally flat ones while I handled the more intricate ones. The week was flying by when Thursday I got a call from Nadine. Dad, Nadine is on the phone and wants to know about this weekend. I heard Tina scream up the stairs at me. I picked up the extension. Hi Nadine, I was just thinking about you. So maybe it was a little white lie, but she had crossed my mind more than a couple of times during the first part of the week. We on for Saturday? Hell yes, I replied immediately with a lot of enthusiasm. I was thinking about taking a trip down A1A to St. Augustine. We can take off from here about 10 and be there in plenty of time for brunch, and I know just the right restaurant. Sounds great. Is Tina coming with us? She can't make it this time. My mom and dad are taking her to lunch, and then for a tour of the naval base where my dad works. She wants to go aboard one of the aircraft carriers. Dad arranged for her to see whatever she wants. There was a bit of hesitation. Okay, I'll see you just before 10. We talked a bit after that, but it was like I had to pull every word out of her. We going on a ride this weekend? Tina asked. Nadine and I are. You and your grandparents are going to lunch, and then on the tour of the naval base you wanted. Why can't I come with the two of you? I need some alone time with Nadine, so I can have a little personal talk with her, that's all. Dad has a girlfriend, she said in a sing-song voice. I wouldn't call Nadine my girlfriend, certainly not yet. Dad, all the new HOG members thought you guys were married to each other, for Christ's sakes. Watch that language, little girl. Dad, I'm not a little girl anymore, and I know she likes you. But for the life of me, I can't understand why you don't like her for a girlfriend. It's complicated, that's all. What's complicated? If you both like one another, you should tell each other. Even the kids in my school move faster than the two of you. Well, you'll be the first one to know if we start dating. You two have been doing that for the last couple of months. It seems to me the only ones who don't realize it are you two. Now, what's for dinner? Saturday, my parents arrived just after 9 to pick up Tina. They didn't leave right away. Tina told them she wanted to wait to say hi to Nadine. My mom and dad wanted to finally get to meet her too. My stomach was doing flip-flops waiting for her to arrive. I felt like a damn woman, changing my pants and shirt twice before she arrived. By 9:30, I was staring out the window watching for her like some love-struck teenager. Tina looked at me and shook her head in frustration. Nadine finally showed up 10 minutes after 10, putting me out of my misery. Since it was the first time she met my parents, I made introductions all around. Nadine told my parents how pleased she was to meet them and then turned to Tina. Tina, sorry you can't make it today, Nadine said to my daughter while looking me right in the eyes. The three of us walked downstairs. I gave Tina a hug and kissed goodbye. Nadine also gave Tina a hug, imparting some words of advice. Have fun with your grandparents, and don't you dare let them talk you into signing up for the Navy. After that, Tina walked back up the stairs to our place to where her grandparents were waiting for her. With that done, Nadine and I mounted up and were out of there. It was a beautiful Florida morning as we rode south along A1A, the ocean road. For a while, I almost lost myself looking at the water, remembering what it was like that first week we bought the house, before Lana got sick. With the windows open, you could smell the salt air, hear the waves crashing onto the shore, and think about how good it felt to be alive. A beep of Nadine's horn brought me back to the present. She told me she wanted a pit stop, so we stopped at the next convenience store. My coffee went right through me this morning, she said, walking out of the bathroom and putting her sunglasses and helmet back on. I topped off my tank, and 2 minutes later, just like the Willie Nelson song said, we were on the road again. Brunch was fabulous. Nadine did give me a bit of a hard time when I told her it was my treat. After we ate, we did the tourist thing, walking up and down St. George Street looking in all the shops. I bought her a little trinket to mount on her bike, and she bought me a chocolate almond ice cream cone. We walked through the historic district looking at all the old houses and checking out a few bed and breakfasts that looked interesting. By 2 o'clock, we decided to head back up north, saying the next time we'd spend the night, so we wouldn't have to rush so much. We couldn't have been more than 20 miles from home when it happened. I was riding on the right side of the right lane. Nadine was about a bike and a half length behind me in the left side of my lane. The signal light was already red when we approached the intersection. I had slowed down to almost a crawl when the light changed to green just as I hit the intersection. 2 seconds later it happened. I had just hit the throttle to speed up. I never saw the car to my right speeding across the intersection until it was too late to do anything. He must have been going at least 30 when he hit the front wheel of my bike, destroying it along with my front forks and putting me into a 180 spin. They say at moments like this time stops, or at least goes in slow motion. Time didn't stop, nor did my bike. I don't remember my bike being spun into the side of his car, nor do I recall being hurled over the trunk of his Toyota Camry either. I'm told I rolled about 25 feet before coming to rest on my back. The whole accident, start to finish, didn't take more than 10 to 20 seconds. I must have gotten knocked out on impact with the car, and if not then, when I was thrown from my bike and hit the pavement. All I can say is, thank God I had leathers and a helmet on and my crash bars did what they were supposed to do. Take the full impact instead of my leg. The car finally stopped along with maybe 10 others. Everyone had a phone in their hands calling 911. I was stunned, not even too sure what just happened other than I knew I wasn't dead or too badly hurt. That is at least what I hoped. Loud shouting and yelling is what I heard. All the while the young kid kept saying over and over again how sorry he was. Around me people were telling me not to move because I could have internal injuries. But after testing each leg and then my arms, I knew they worked and were intact. Nadine, I screamed just as the first squad car arrived, sirens blaring. In the distance I could hear at least one more, but right now I had other things on my mind, not knowing if she also had been hit. One of the patrol officers was attempting to keep all the onlookers back when I finally spotted her out of the corner of my eye. She went under his arm and was next to me a second later. Her tears flowed. We just looked at one another, saying nothing, until she wrapped her arms around me, whispering in my ear, "I thought you were dead." "Only the good die young," I replied, trying to make a little joke to lighten up what was probably a traumatic moment for her. Me, I was trying to be the tough guy, but realized rather quickly that, although I may not have broken any bones, I had plenty of road rash, with probably more bruises than I could handle. My head was starting to clear, and besides wanting to see what was left of my bike, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. That was unlikely to happen anytime soon. "Mr. Moore, please stay still until we get a chance to make sure you haven't broken anything," the paramedic said, putting gauze pads on my elbow, knee, and shoulder. My helmet and sunglasses were missing, but I still had what was left of my riding gloves on. Nadine never moved a muscle. She just sat there looking at me with her big, dark brown eyes and this blank expression on her face. "Nadine, are you all right?" She said nothing. "Doc, can you please check out my friend? I think something's wrong with her." They did nothing. "Damn it, something's wrong with her. Nadine, can you hear me?" Still nothing. I lost my patience. I sat up and reached for her, putting my arms around her. "It's okay. Do you hear me? I'm okay. We're okay. Do you hear me?" She just sat there with this faraway look in eyes. I kissed her. It wasn't some huge, passionate kiss, more one of someone conveying affection and assurance. The kiss I got back surprised the hell out of the paramedics and me. It was passionate, overflowing with feeling and emotion. "Well, it looks like your girlfriend is also okay," he said with a laugh. "We're going to transport you to the hospital. She can either ride with us or meet us there." I took one more look at her. "I think it would be a good idea if she came with us." One of the two policemen said that both bikes would be transported to the impound lot. "Is there any way possible someone can get my girl's trike to the hospital they're taking me to instead?" The two looked at each other and said they'd find someone to do that for me. With that, we were loaded into the back of the ambulance, and with the sirens screaming, we were off. Nadine never left my side throughout the exams and numerous x-rays. I held her hand, touched her cheek, and kept saying it was going to be all right. I wasn't a damn doctor, but I could swear she looked like she was in shock. It took me almost 2 hours to get someone to finally take a look at Nadine. I was the one they were concerned about, but I was now more worried about her than I was about myself. I was banged up pretty bad but would live. However, mentally I wasn't so sure about her. She lost her husband when they were in a motorcycle crash a couple of years ago. I told the doctor as he looked into her eyes, checked her pulse, and gave her a once-over. I think seeing me sprawled out on the ground brought back all those memories. "You may be right, but there is nothing physically wrong with her. You're the one she saw, and you're the one she's concerned about. Keep giving her assurances that you're all right. As soon as she sees that and her brain understands you're okay, it should bring her back. If that doesn't work, then there are other types of doctors who deal with those kind of problems." Almost 6 hours after being admitted, I was released. After giving the police my statement and finding out where I could pick up my bike the following week, we were finally done. With a bunch of pain pills in my pocket, we made our way out the front door hand in hand. We found her trike in the emergency room parking lot in a handicap parking spot. Nadine was still not quite all there. We were holding hands, looking into each other's eyes, wondering, I guess, what was next. There was no way in hell she was going to be able to drive us home. I found her keys and helmet in the truck of her bike. Where my helmet ended up was anyone's guess. I put her into the rear seat with her helmet on, climbed aboard, and gave myself a crash course. Not the best choice of words under the circumstances, in the workings of a Harley trike. It looked basically the same as an Ultra I once rode, except it had a reverse gear. After 2 tries, I finally got us situated, and we headed up A1A towards Jacksonville and home. More than once I felt her wrap her arms around me. I would have normally turned around and said something, or at least smiled at her, but after the excitement of today, I was just happy to be in one piece and heading for home. I was going to warn Tina or maybe call Tommy, but I had my hands full right now, and what the hell was I going to say? Houston, we have a problem? I think not. I was glad tomorrow was Sunday. I pulled onto the driveway and parked in the rear of our house. I got off, pulled off her helmet, and looked at her. Sadness was what I saw in her eyes. Things were not back to normal yet. I gave her a quick kiss on her lips, helped her off her bike, put my arms around her, holding her in a tight hug before leading her into the house. Inside, I sat her down in a kitchen chair, gave her a soda, and grabbed one for myself. I was thankful Tina wasn't back yet. I knew my mom was waiting for my call to say we were home. I wasn't sure what to do. Nadine's eyes were following me around the room. She seemed to not want to let me out of her sight. Maybe a good night's sleep would bring her back?